Okay, well, this should surprise absolutely nobody, but Donald is coming perilously close to ignoring the Constitution. Why shouldn't this surprise us? Well, one, because it's a document he's never read, so how would he know he's ignoring it? And two, just intuitively, he's been ignoring it for a very long time anyway. But this time around, he's doing it in a way that feels explicit and pointed. Last night, Donald posted on his failing social media platform that, quote, we cannot give everyone a trial, unquote, when it comes to his mass deportations. Now, again, not that he would know this, but the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution affords everybody in the United States counsel, regardless of citizenship. Denying them that right, denying them due process, is blatantly unconstitutional. So, this is the part that Donald is willfully, and everybody in his orbit, including people who should know better, like, I don't know, attorneys, are ignoring that the right to due process exists for every individual in this country, not any individual who is a citizen of this country. And that's the important distinction, right? You can have been airdropped here from somewhere else entirely and not be an American citizen. And if something goes wrong, you too have a right to due process. So what Donald Trump and his regime are trying to do is muddy the waters and convince people who want to be convinced that that Sixth Amendment right doesn't apply to illegals, as they would put it, doesn't apply to people who came into this country by means that aren't necessarily legal, doesn't apply to people who aren't citizens, even if such people are here legally. Because right now, so far, generally speaking, the people who have been illegally detained and deported and disappeared and incarcerated in other countries have not been United States citizens. Although accidents are starting to happen. Anyway, some people are going to be okay with that because what they are failing to be told is that that is a very, very, very dangerous road to go down. Because if one person in this country does not have the right to due process, nobody does. And Donald does not want his base to understand this. A federal judge is pushing back on these unconstitutional deportations. This judge from Colorado ruled that the Trump regime must provide Venezuelan migrants with 21 days' notice before deportation under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act, allowing time to challenge removals in court. The judge also stated the notice must be in a language the migrants understand and inform them of their right to consult legal counsel. ACLU's challenge, the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, which is the American Civil Liberties Union, is challenging this because they had requested a 30-day notice period, citing due process concerns. This comes in the wake of the United States Supreme Court's recent decision on April 7th that requires migrants to be given an opportunity to challenge their deportations, though it did not specify the notice period, because that's what this Supreme Court is so good at, failing to be specific. The Colorado judge is not the only one pushing back on deportations without trials or affording people their rights, which brings us to none other than Joe Rogan. He's on the right now, I guess, but his politics had always been kind of murky until he definitely became a hardcore supporter of Donald Trump. This is what Rogan had to say on his podcast.
The problem with things that are going in a radical direction, and then there's an overcorrection. So the overcorrection is lack of due process. The overcorrection is like round them all up, ship them to jail. Like that's like some things that you say when you're not thinking things through. Like, what do you do about all the criminals? Take them all, fucking send them to El Salvador.
Yeah.
What about due process? No, fuck that. But here's the problem with fuck that. What if you are an enemy of, let's not say any current president. Let's pretend we got a new president, totally new guy in 2028, And this is a common practice now of just rounding up gang members with no due process and shipping them to El Salvador. You're a gang member. No, I'm not. Prove it. What? I got to go to court. No,
Yeah.
no due process. Here it is. Benjamin Franklin. It's better 100 guilty persons should escape than one innocent person should suffer. That is wisdom
Yeah.
that has survived hundreds of years. It's incredibly accurate, and it is the foundation of freedom.
Yeah, and it's like never been true in America, but that's okay. Joe, welcome. By the way, I think it's worth pointing out that in 2028, if Democrats back into power, we have much better things to do. We have much bigger criminals to put on trial and incarcerate. I can think of a few off the top of my head. Some of them are already convicted felons, as a matter of fact. Anyway, good that Rogan is warning how dangerous this process of deportation has been. And yeah, he's got a huge platform. Subscribe to this channel. And he's warning. Rogan is warning because I guess he's been listening. That we have to make sure America doesn't become monsters. Doesn't become, my word, we already are. Because Joe, we're there already. We are there. We are way past. Are we monsters or not? Just as we are way past. Are we in a constitutional crisis? Or yes, we are in several constitutional crises. Yes, we are well past the point where Donald Trump has been ignoring the Constitution. We are well past there, being at those points of critical danger. Okay, so what? Well, keep speaking out about it, of course, because as we're seeing at Republican town halls and a lot of protests, the American people actually get this stuff, or a lot of them do. We need more of them too, though, because as I said earlier, Donald Trump is doing everything in his power to make sure that a critical mass of people does not understand what is actually going on, who actually are believing that it is okay to deny rights to one class of people because they believe that that will never affect them. It's not true, right? But they have been trained for so long to believe the lies, especially even, I would suggest, lies that make their lives worse. Like these are the people, I'm not kidding you. These are the people who are ready to be told at some point, if you want to make America great again, you cannot take your Social Security anymore. That cannot belong to you anymore. That is how far gone this is. So we need to work on the people who are still paying attention and who are still engaged enough to believe the evidence in front of them. And there is so much of it. So again, I am glad that Joe Rogan is on the right side of this because millions of people listen to him. Mostly the demographic with which Democrats are in the most trouble. Young white men, young disaffected white men, because apparently not enough is going right for young white men in this country. So here's a perfect example of how we are already the monsters Rogan worries we are going to become. Maria LePere and Charlotte Pohl, both recent high school graduates, so they're still teenagers from Germany, were on a world tour visiting countries like Thailand and New Zealand, to name a few. And their vacation took an unexpected turn when they made the huge mistake of visiting America. They arrived in Hawaii without pre-booking accommodations. Has anybody ever done that before? Yep. Especially when you're a teenager and you're just traveling around and you don't know what you're going to be able to afford. People do that all the time. But this is Donald Trump's America. So, when they got to Hawaii without a reservation, immigration officials suspecting potential unauthorized work due to the lack of hotel reservations, detained them. The two of them spent several days in a detention facility before being deported, despite holding valid travel documents and having no prior infractions. While they were detained, they were dressed in green prison uniforms and placed in a holding cell, along with long term detainees, some of whom were facing serious criminal charges. They reported having to sleep on thin, moldy mattresses and were told by guards to avoid eating expired food. So, two teenagers on vacation were detained, placed in prison with actual criminals who were facing violent criminal charges. So, now we're not only imprisoning innocent people, but these, I'd say, purposefully careless detentions continue to target some of the people who are at the top of their field, the people that we are supposed to that we used to be known for attracting to this country. Harvard Medical School's groundbreaking cancer research is in jeopardy after ICE detained Ksenia Petrova, a Russian scientist whose custom code is essential to analyzing images from a revolutionary microscope. Petrova was arrested in February at Boston's airport for failing to declare. Wow. Okay, I'm about to get on a flight tonight. I'm glad I now know this is a crime. I'm gonna have to repack. She was arrested for failing to declare frog embryo samples used in her research. Instead of a fine, her visa was revoked, and she's been held in Louisiana for 2 months and now faces deportation to Russia, where she fears persecution for opposing the war in Ukraine. Her mentor, a man named Dr. Leon Peshkin, said that no one else in the lab can replicate her skill set, combining embryology, data modeling, and bioinformatics. Without her, he and colleagues warn vital cancer research may stall indefinitely. Colleagues say her absence could derail major advancements in early cancer detection, and Dr. William Trim warned that without her, critical discoveries may never happen. If they deport her, we may never see her again, he said. But the impact of this case isn't just on the advancement of cancer research that can benefit the world, but acting as another strike against scientists who would normally consider working in America. Dr. Peshkin said, quote, "It's already having an effect. I hear from many colleagues that people who were planning to stay have changed their minds," unquote. This case highlights growing alarm over Trump era immigration crackdowns. Petrova's first immigration hearing is this week after 2 months. Her future and potentially life saving research both hang in the balance here. So I've been asking this question a lot recently. Why? What is the purpose of such travesties? Why would anybody, any immigration officer anywhere, look at a couple of teenage kids who haven't made a reservation yet, come into Hawaii, obviously on vacation, and see a threat? That's the first question. The second question: why do we want to become a country shunned by experts in their field when the United States of America, despite its many, many flaws, was a beacon for such expertise until the not too distant past? Why? So I'll start with the first question first. Because when you put a petty tyrant like Donald Trump, somebody so insecure, so desperate to prove that he's something he's not, so unbearably in need of being seen as tough when in reality he is just the weakest, most pathetic person who has ever lived. That filters down. That creates a permission structure for other people like him who see themselves in him, who also want power to make up for the voids in their lives. So we get a bunch of petty tyrants all over the place being empowered by the worst people in the world to in some cases, grievous harm to the most vulnerable people in the world. In this case, 2 teenagers just graduated from high school, wanting to see the world. Well, guess what? Nobody wants to see the United States of America anymore. And why would they? Second question. So, why is it that we don't want expertise in this country anymore? Why are we comfortable being at the point where instead of being that beacon, where instead of being a magnet for the best among us, the best minds, are we perfectly comfortable with the massive amount of brain drain that is going to hit this country and already is? Well, what is the best way? Sorry, that leads to another question. What is the best way to unravel a democracy and keep people so weakened that they are malleable? Well, you keep them poor, you keep them uneducated and ignorant, and you keep them sick. And that is Robert Kennedy's mandate. Make Americans sick. It all hangs together. Look what's happening to our economy. Look what's happening to our institutions. Look what's happening to our democracy. Look what's happening to our rights. And look what is happening to our health. One more thing. Imagine during World War II, people like Albert Einstein looked at America and said, "Oh, no, I do not want to go there. I don't feel safe there. I am not going to give them my expertise." That's what it sounds like is happening. And it's going to keep getting worse.